The day I opened Sweet Success Bakery, my family treated it like a joke. I still remember standing in my newly renovated shop, surrounded by the gleaming display cases and the warm scent of fresh bread, while they picked everything apart. "Oh honey," my mother sighed, running a manicured finger along the counter. "A bakery? After graduating from Cornell's hospitality program? What a waste." My father didn't even try to hide his disappointment. "Isabel, we spent a fortune on your education so you could run prestigious restaurants, not sell cupcakes to housewives." The worst was my brother Anthony, fresh from his latest triumph as executive chef at our family's crown jewel, the Golden Vine, Boston's most acclaimed fine dining establishment. "Really, Izzy?" He smirked, picking up one of my artisanal croissants and dropping it like it might contaminate him. "This is what you're settling for? Making birthday cakes and cookie platters." I straightened my apron, crisp white with my bakery's logo embroidered in gold, and met his gaze. "Not everyone needs foamed truffle essence to make good food, Anthony." He laughed, that condescending chuckle that always made me feel small. "No, some people just lack the ambition to do better. Enjoy your little hobby." What they didn't know, what none of them had bothered to ask, was that Sweet Success was just the visible part of my plan. While they'd assumed I was finding myself after graduation, I'd actually been building something much bigger. The truth was, I'd spent the last 3 years working behind the scenes, using my inheritance from Grandma Rose to quietly acquire struggling restaurants across the city. Each one was carefully chosen, thoroughly researched, and turned around using methods I'd developed during my wasted education. My company, Rose Hospitality Group, named in honor of my grandmother, now owned 15 restaurants, 3 catering companies, and was about to close deals on 2 more venues. But as far as my family knew, I was just the owner of a cute little bakery in the wrong part of town. "The location is certainly interesting," my mother commented, peering through the front windows at the developing neighborhood. "Though I suppose it's all you could afford." What she didn't know was that I owned the entire building, plus 3 others on the block. The area was on the cusp of becoming the city's hottest new dining district, something I'd discovered through careful market research while my family was busy chasing Michelin stars. "Maybe we could help you get a job at the Golden Vine," my father offered, trying to sound generous. "Something entry-level, of course, but it would be a step up from this." I thought about the reports sitting in my office upstairs, the ones showing the Golden Vine's steadily declining revenues. My family's pride and joy was bleeding money, though they were too arrogant to see it. "Thanks, Dad, but I'm happy here," I said, sliding a fresh batch of chocolate chip cookies into the display case. They were made from Grandma Rose's recipe, the same one she'd used to build her own successful bakery before my father convinced her to sell it and invest in real restaurants. "Happiness doesn't pay the bills," Anthony snipped. "But I suppose you'll learn that soon enough. Most small businesses fail within the first year, you know." I did know. I also knew why they failed, which was exactly why Rose Hospitality Group had a 98% success rate with its acquisitions. But Anthony was too busy adding gold leaf to overpriced risotto to understand real business strategy. "We should go," my mother announced, checking her designer watch. "We have reservations at the Golden Vine. Anthony's launching his new tasting menu tonight. 14 courses of molecular gastronomy. Now that's real cooking." I watched them leave, their expressions a mixture of pity and disappointment. Through the window, I saw them climb into my father's Mercedes, probably already forgetting about their failure of a daughter and her doomed little bakery. What they didn't see was James Chin, my CFO, slipping in through the back door moments later. "The final reports are in," he said, setting his laptop on the counter. "The Golden Vine's numbers are worse than we thought. They're 3 months behind on their lease. Suppliers are demanding payment upfront, and their staff turnover rate is approaching 80%. I wiped flour from my hands and opened the spreadsheet. "And the property?" "The building owner is ready to sell. He's tired of late payments and Anthony's attitude. We can get it for 30% below market value if we move fast." I smiled, thinking of my brother's face when he realized his precious kitchen would soon belong to his failing sister. "Do it. But through one of our shell companies. I don't want them to know it's us." "Not yet." James nodded, already typing. "What about the other issues? The health code violations they've been hiding, the wage theft complaints from former staff." "Document everything but don't report it yet. When the time comes, we'll use it to negotiate. I started preparing dough for tomorrow's breakfast service. How long until they're forced to seek investors? At their current burn rate? 2 months, maybe 3. Their new molecular gastronomy program is bleeding them dry. The equipment alone cost more than their monthly revenue. I thought about Anthony's elaborate creations, dishes that looked like art but often left diners still hungry, plated with expensive tools he barely knew how to use properly. He'd always chosen flash over substance. Keep monitoring the situation, I said. And make sure our other acquisitions stay under the radar. I don't want anyone connecting Rose Hospitality Group to Sweet Success until the moment is right. James packed up his laptop, then hesitated. Isabel, are you sure about this? Buying your family's restaurant, letting them struggle until they have to come to you for help. It's ruthless. I looked around my bakery at the cases filled with carefully crafted pastries, each one made with skill and love rather than pretension. At the comfortable seating area where customers could actually relax instead of perching uncomfortably on designer chairs. At the walls painted in warm colors instead of stark, fashionable white. They're the ones who chose to be ruthless, I said quietly. When they mocked my dreams, dismissed my choices, and tried to shame me into following their path. Now they'll learn what happens when you underestimate someone who actually understands both food and business. The bell above the door chimed as my first afternoon customers arrived. A young mother with 2 children, their eyes lighting up at the display of cookies and cakes. Welcome to Sweet Success, I greeted them warmly, already reaching for the cookie samples I kept ready for young visitors. This was real hospitality, not the cold, Instagram-worthy experience my family thought represented success. As I helped the children choose their treats, I thought about the Golden Vine's empty tables and mounting debts. About my brother's overpriced menu that locals couldn't afford and tourists visited once but never returned to. About my parents' stubborn pride that would soon come crashing down. They thought I was small, pursuing a humble dream while they chased prestige. They were about to learn that true success isn't measured in Michelin stars or molecular foam, but in understanding what people really want and need. And sometimes, it comes wrapped in the simple perfection of a chocolate chip cookie, served by the person they least expected to succeed. The collapse of the Golden Vine happened faster than even I predicted. Anthony's molecular gastronomy experiment was a disaster. Local food critics called it pretentious, inedible, and a masterclass in style over substance. My brother's response was to buy more expensive equipment and raise prices even higher. 2 months after my family's visit to my pathetic little bakery, James brought me the news I'd been waiting for. They're desperate, he reported, setting a thick folder on my office desk. The bank is threatening to call their loans, suppliers are demanding cash on delivery, and they just lost their last major investor. I looked up from the wedding cake design I was sketching. And the property? We closed the deal yesterday. Rose Hospitality Group now owns the building through 3 layers of shell companies. They don't suspect a thing. I smiled, thinking of the lease violation notices our property management company would soon be sending. Perfect timing. How's Sweet Success doing? James grinned, pulling up our latest numbers. Revenue is up 40% this quarter. The cooking classes are booked solid for the next 6 months, and that feature in Food and Wine about artisanal bakeries revitalizing urban neighborhoods brought in a flood of new customers. And our other properties? All showing healthy profits. The new farm-to-table concept in the old warehouse space is already turning tables away. The casual Italian place we bought last month just got a 4-star review. Even that struggling diner we took over is now breaking even. I nodded, satisfied. While my family had been chasing trends and stars, I'd been building a restaurant group focused on quality, sustainability, and actual hospitality. No foam, no gold leaf, just good food served with genuine care. The call came 3 days later. Isabel. My father's voice sounded strained. Are you busy? We need to talk. I looked around my bustling bakery, where customers lined up for fresh bread and pastries while others sat enjoying coffee and treats at the comfortable tables. I'm at work, Dad. Like always. Yes, well. He cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we could meet. There's a business opportunity we'd like to discuss. I checked my watch. I'm free at 2. You can come to the bakery. The bakery? Couldn't we meet somewhere more appropriate? The Golden Vine, perhaps. Dad, it's my business hour. Take it or leave it. He arrived exactly at 2, looking distinctly uncomfortable in my cheerful, busy shop. Anthony slouched in behind him, his chef's ego distinctly deflated. Let's talk in my office, I said, leading them upstairs. Their eyes widened as we entered my spacious, professionally decorated office. The wall of industry awards and glowing reviews probably didn't match their image of a simple baker's workspace. You have all this for a bakery? Anthony couldn't help asking. I believe in investing in my business, I replied coolly. Now, what's this opportunity you wanted to discuss? My father shifted in his seat. The Golden Vine is considering bringing on new investors. We thought, given your background in hospitality. You mean my wasted education? I interrupted softly. He flinched. Isabel, about that, we may have been hasty in our judgment. May have been. I raised an eyebrow. Like you may have been hasty in dismissing Grandma Rose's bakery as beneath you, before turning it into an overpriced fusion restaurant that failed within a year. That was different, Anthony protested. We were elevating the concept. No, I cut in. You were letting your egos destroy something that worked. Just like you're doing with the Golden Vine. I pulled out the folder James had prepared, spreading photos and reports across my desk. Health code violations. Staff complaints. Scathing reviews. Mounting debts. Your molecular gastronomy program has cost you $300,000 in equipment alone. Your food costs are at 45% because you're buying ingredients for show rather than taste. Your staff turnover is higher than any other restaurant in the city. They stared at the evidence of their failure, faces pale. How do you know all this? My father whispered. I pressed a button on my desk phone. James, could you join us? My CFO entered carrying more files. Ms. Martinez, the property transfer documents are ready. Would you like me to explain to your family who their new landlord is? Anthony's head snapped up. What property transfer? I smiled. Rose Hospitality Group now owns the building housing the Golden Vine, along with 30 other restaurant properties across the city. Rose Hospitality, that's one of the biggest restaurant groups in Boston, my father said slowly. They own the Italian place on Harbor Street, the new farm-to-table restaurant everyone's talking about, that clever little fusion spot in the Arts District. I paused. And yes, one very successful bakery. The silence was deafening. You own all that? Anthony's voice cracked. I understand business, brother dear. Real business, not just trendy cooking techniques. I know what people want, what makes a restaurant successful, and most importantly, what makes one fail. I stood up, walking to my window that overlooked the now thriving neighborhood. While you were chasing stars and recognition, I was building something sustainable. Every restaurant in my group is profitable. Everyone serves food people actually want to eat. And none of them needs gold leaf to prove their worth. What do you want? My father asked quietly. I want what I've always wanted, to honor Grandma Rose's legacy. To create restaurants that serve their communities, not just their owners' egos. I turned back to them. I'll buy the Golden Vine. At market rate, which given your debts and violations isn't much. And then what? Anthony demanded. Fire everyone. Turn it into another bakery. Actually, I'm going to restore it. Back to what it was 20 years ago before you decided fine dining meant forgetting what food is actually about. I sat back down. And you can both stay on. If you're willing to learn. Learn. Anthony scoffed. I trained in. You trained in techniques, I interrupted. Now it's time to learn about hospitality. Real hospitality, not the kind that needs tweezers to plate a single bite of food. To my surprise, my father laughed. A genuine laugh I hadn't heard in years. She sounds just like your grandmother, he said to Anthony. Remember how Rose always said we were too busy being fancy to be good? Anthony's anger deflated. The chocolate chip cookies, he said suddenly. The ones you had in the display case when we visited. They were her recipe, weren't they? I nodded. The same ones that built her first bakery. The ones people lined up for every morning. No molecular gastronomy required. I haven't had one of those cookies in years, he admitted. I reached into my desk and pulled out a box. Inside were chocolate chip cookies, still warm from the morning's baking. Grandma Rose believed that good food brings people together, I said, offering the box. That's what I've built my restaurants on. Not trends, not critics' opinions, but real connections over real food. They each took a cookie, and for a moment, we were children again, sitting in Grandma Rose's kitchen while she taught us that the simplest things, made with love and skill, were worth more than any fancy technique. So, I said as they savored the familiar taste of childhood, shall we discuss terms? The transformation of the golden vine took 6 months. We stripped away the pretension, restored the warm ambience it had once been famous for, and rebuilt its reputation on quality rather than novelty. Anthony struggled at first, his ego warring with the need to change. But slowly, as customers responded to the new menu with genuine enthusiasm rather than polite appreciation, he remembered why he'd wanted to cook in the first place. My father, freed from the pressure of maintaining a failing image, discovered he actually enjoyed restaurants again. He started greeting guests personally, learning their names and preferences, creating the kind of loyalty that marketing couldn't buy. Sweet Success Bakery remains my personal favorite among all my properties. Every morning I still put on my apron and help with the early baking shift. The smell of fresh bread and cookies reminds me of Grandma Rose, of lessons learned in her kitchen about what really matters in food and life. Last week, Anthony asked if he could apprentice in the bakery 1 day a week. I want to learn the basics again, he said. The real basics, not the fancy stuff. I gave him an apron with the Sweet Success logo. It looked strange over his expensive chef's clothes, but somehow right. Start with the cookies, I told him. Grandma Rose always said if you can make a perfect chocolate chip cookie, you can make anything. He nodded, humbled but finally understanding. Sometimes the sweetest success isn't in proving others wrong, but in helping them remember what's right. Rose Hospitality Group continues to grow, but we never forget our roots. A simple bakery born from a grandmother's legacy and built on the belief that good food served with love is the finest cuisine of all.